So, folks, how's it going? This is Avich here, and welcome to Devops Challenge Hub. So, let's start with today's interview question. And today's interview question is on PV and PVC. But before we go to that, let's quickly revise the concept. Okay. So, let's understand the storage in EKS. So, if you think ECS cluster is like a kitchen and your pod is like a chef, then you need some storage space, right? Like for kitchen ingredients, cooking ingredients, right? So that's the fridge is like your dish storage. So for cooking ingredients, you keep it in fridge or dish storage. A pod is like a chef, and ECS cluster is like a restaurant or a kitchen. So this is the way we can correlate or draw the analogy. So pods are ephemeral; they come and go, right? So if you want to store some data, you cannot rely on the pod. Pod may get destroyed again, new pod may come up. So if you want to store the data, you need some space to store the data, and that's where persistent storage comes in, right? Like at the Docker, we know that persistent storage we need because Docker is also there. So a place to keep your data outside the pod is your storage. Now, question is why you can't attach the storage directly? Uh, the answer is pod are ephemeral, they come and go. And container inside the pods are stateless by default. So for database logs or files, you need a way to store even if the pod restarts and possibly share with multiple pods, like share folder kind of thing. Now let's see the concept of PV and PVC. So PV is what? PV is a persistent volume. That is the actual disk, persistent volume, right? So you can think of it like a physical disk which is attached, which exists in your cluster, right? And it can be pre-created or it can be created dynamically when the request is there to Kubernetes that I want 100 GB disk. That time Kubernetes will create it. So example is AWS EBS or EFS, like a network folder. Network EFS is like a network folder, and EBS is like a USB drive which is connected to your laptop. Okay. So there are two ways it can be pre-created. You create before the request comes and dynamically create. When request comes, then only you create. So that is the PV. PV is the actual disk. And PVC is persistent volume claim. It's a pod request. Pod is requesting that I need 100 GB, 10 GB of storage. Please give me something I can write to. So Kubernetes looks for available disk and available PVC and find the match and binds it to the PVC, that persistent volume claim. So PVCs are what pods use to ask for storage, and PV are the actual storage. So PVC is a claim request, and pod is a PV is actual disk. So PV is actual disk, and persistent volume claim is the request. Now, what is storage class? Storage class is a template or policy for the creating PV. So when you want to create PV dynamically, that storage you want to create dynamically. So you have a template. So template tells what type of storage will be created, how fast and where. So what type of storage? It defines this template or policy defines what type of storage. EBS, GP3, AFS, how fast, IOPS, throughput, where, in which availability zone. So all these details are provided here. Without this, you have to create manually beforehand. So how the request goes? Pod request for pods do PVC like claim. It sends the request. Then Kubernetes refers to the storage class which creates a PV behind the scene. So this is the flow. When you deploy in the deployment, pod needs persistent data. Attach PVC storage request will be made. Matches storage class, and then Kubernetes provisions PV using CSI driver. So this is also important because storage class says this is a template. This is what you can create EBS or EBS. But to create that, Kubernetes needs some help of someone. So that is the CSI driver which will be creating EBS and EFS. And then pod use the mounted storage. So let's look at example database pod. So you deploy MySQL on EKS. But SQL needs a database disk storage to keep the data files because if the pod is deleted, your database is gone. So what you do, you define a storage class using EBS. So storage class, you mentioned that you want EBS storage, and then create a PVC request 10 GB, and MySQL pod attached to this PVC, and then data is stored in the EBS volume in the PV. Okay. So key AWS storage types, EBS is block storage, one EC2 at a time, and it's good for database single pod. Like AWS, it's CSI driver is AWS EBS CSI driver. EFS is a shared file system, so multiple pod can access. If it's a log, like you want to write logs, so multiple pods they can go and write logs. S3 is the object storage. You can't mount. It's not like a PV compatible. S3 is not PV compatible, but you can upload data, you can store data, right? You can backup binaries, so not directly mountable. So let's look at example environment snippet, EBS. This is a storage class for EBS, right? This is a storage class, kind is storage, and EBS SC. Provisioner is EBS CSI AWS.com. Volume binding mode, wait for first consumer. Parameter GP3. Then we are, this is a storage class we are defining this way. After that, we are defining PVC, that is a persistent volume claim, request for the volume. And this request name is my EBS PVC, my EBS PVC. Any name you can give. Access mode is read write once, and 10 GB, and storage class is EBS SC. And then pod is using this PVC, the volume claim. Now pod is using this kind is pod now, and this is the metadata MyDP, and you can see that volume. This PVC is my EBS PVC. Same thing we are using here. My EBS PVC. My EBS PVC we are using here. So this is the request we created earlier, right, in the PVC. And pod is using that request, PVC request. And it's mounting to this path, val_lib MySQL. So that this hard disk, it's mounting to this path, and it has given some name MySQL storage. Okay. So PV is a disk in your cluster, holds data for a pod. PVC is a request for the disk. I want this 10 GB. Request for the disk. Pod asks for the storage. Storage class is a blueprint. How to create the disk. How do I create EBS? How do I create EFS, right? Auto create PV is dynamic create. So it's for dynamic creation. And CS driver, it's a bridge between AWS and Kubernetes. So Kubernetes wants to create. How Kubernetes will create? Kubernetes and want to create on EBS storage or EFS, right? So it needs the driver. It needs this help of CSI driver. So these are the important concepts here: PV, PVC, storage class, and CSI driver. Now let's go to the interview question. What are persistent volume, PV and PVCs? We already discussed. PV is like an actual volume, persistent volume. It can be storage in your system because the pods are ephemeral. It come and go. We need some permanent storage, persistent storage using EBS or EFS. So that's the permanent persistent storage. It's like a locker. And PVC is the request for the locker, request for the volume, right? I need 10 GB. So that's the PVC. So analogy is PV is available locker, PVC is the request to use the locker, right? Locker is there, you go and make a request in a bank. So that's the PVC, right? I want a locker. How do you integrate EBS volume with EKS? EBS volume with EKS, how do you do that? So first, you have to make sure that pod and EBS volumes are in the same availability one. Then install EBS CSI driver. You need to have that CSI driver. After that, create a storage class, and then make a PVC claim, a PVC request, create a PVC that uses that storage class. Then in your pod, you use that PVC. So you have the CSI driver, you create a storage class, you create a PVC, then use that PVC in the pod. How do you use EFS in the case for shared storage? Same thing, you have to EFS file system mount target in your PVC. The mount target should be there. Then install EFS CSI driver. Once you create the driver, you need to have storage class. Once you have the storage class, you need to have the PVC and use that PVC from your pod and from multiple pods. Because EFS is for multiple pods, shared files. Basically for logs, shared websites, etc. What are the storage classes in Kubernetes? Storage classes, we discussed that it's a recipe how to create storage dynamically. Recipe how to create storage dynamically. What it depends? It depends what type of storage to create, like EBS, AFS, right? What type of storage to create? SSD, HDD, what type of storage to create? How fast? Like what kind of IOPS throughput? Where to create? Which region? Is it location? So you define a template. It's a blueprint. It's a policy like how it will be created. That guidelines are there. What it will be created. So storage class, past, provisioner, who is the provisioner, what type. How do you handle dynamic volume provisioning in EKS? Dynamic volume provisioning in EKS we handle to storage class and CSI driver. We handle different storage class and CSI driver. EKS supports AWS EBS CSI driver. For EBS, AWS EFS CSI driver like AFS. What are the different access modes for persistent volume? Different access mode, read write once. Read write once, only one guy can read write. That is the EBS. EBS, right? It's like your disk connected to your USB connected to your laptop. Right? Only one guy can read. Multiple laptops cannot read write. EFS, multiple can read write. Read only many pods can read but not write. 2 for EFS. Read write many pods can read write together. EFS. So EFS can handle all these operations. But for EBS, it's only read write one. EBS for single pod workload like MySQL, MongoDB. EFS for multi-pod workload like web app sharing, file sharing. So these are the use cases. Single pod workload, EBS, MySQL and MongoDB. EFS for multi-pod workload like web apps and file sharing. Okay, so now let's go to quiz section. You can pause the video and try to answer. Okay, give it a try. Which analogy best describes PV and PVC? PVC is a locker, liquid for locker. So we know that PV is a locker and PVC is the request for the locker. It's a storage. PV is a storage and PVC is a request for the storage. Right? Correct answer is B. Which of the following is true about Amazon EPS? The mountain one. You can pause the video. You can mount it multiple pauses. Yeah, it's suitable. EBS is suitable for single pod storage needs. The answer is C. EBS is like USB, right? Mounted to only one node. So ideal for DB pod. It's suitable for only single pod. Amazon EPS is best suited for which following use case? You can pause the answer. Sharing files between multiple pods. Answer is B. EFS is like a shared Google Drive folder accessible by many pods. Before EFS with EKS, what must you do? What must you do? So you need to install the driver. You need to create EFS access point, and you have to configure storage class. These are the three things you have to do: access point, SSI driver, and storage class A, B, and B. What is storage class used for in Kubernetes? Storage class is like a creating and configure storage automatically. Storage class, we need it to create and configure storage automatically, dynamically, right? EBS, EFS. What parameters can be defined in storage class? What do we define in storage class? Give it a try. We define type of storage, IOPS, and throughput. Answer is C. Answer is C. What is dynamic provisioning in Kubernetes? Kubernetes created a PV automatically when PVC is created. When PVC is created, that request is created, automatically PV will be created by Kubernetes. Answer is C. What are the different access modes for persistent volume? Okay. Which of the following modes are supported by EBS volume? So EBS supports only read write once. Read write once. Answer A. Read write once. Which are you are deploying a MySQL pod in a case, which storage option is best? MySQL, this is for single pod. EBS with read write once. Answer is C. MySQL is a single pod workload. So EBS is ideal. So that's it for today. Hope you like this video. Please like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also follow my LinkedIn page, DevOps Challenge Hub. I post quiz contests regularly, and you can participate in that. And also follow WhatsApp channel, DevOps Challenge Hub. So I post updates regularly. And thank you for watching this video. And see you again in the next video.